The massive Volani transport ship Peaceful Dawn was in serious trouble. It floated dead in space inside the dangerous Caraxes debris field, completely helpless. 3 huge holes had been torn through its metal hull by spinning chunks of space junk. Captain Thylos stood on his bridge, watching the emergency lights flicker as one system after another began shutting down. "Send the distress signal now," Thylos ordered his communications officer. His voice stayed calm, but inside he felt the cold grip of fear. 200 innocent Volani passengers were trapped on his dying ship. These weren't soldiers or explorers, they were families heading home from a trade conference. Mothers holding their children close. Elderly Volani who had never seen danger like this. The Volani were not built for harsh conditions. Their bodies were delicate, almost bird-like, with thin blue skin you could see through. They needed clean air to breathe, and that air was running out fast. In the passenger sections, people coughed and wheezed as the atmosphere grew thinner. Some had already collapsed. Captain Thylos watched his crew work desperately to patch the holes, but it was no use. The debris field around them kept sending more metal fragments crashing into their ship. Each impact shook the vessel and opened new tears in the hull. They were like sitting targets in the middle of a cosmic shooting gallery. The distress signal went out across space, carrying their location and the terrible news. Peaceful Dawn was dying, and everyone on board would die with it unless someone came to help. But Thylos knew the truth, that he couldn't tell his passengers. No one was coming. The Caraxes debris field was a graveyard that surrounded an unstable pulsar star. The radiation alone could kill most species in minutes. Across the galaxy, 17 different alien civilizations picked up the emergency signal. The proud hegemony empire received it first. Their military computers calculated the danger level and immediately marked the rescue as impossible. The peaceful, ethereal collective heard the call next. Their wise council spent exactly 4 seconds considering the situation before deciding the ship was already lost. One by one, every major power in known space made the same cold decision. The math was simple. Any rescue ship entering that debris field would be destroyed. Sending help would only mean more deaths. It was logical. It was sensible. It was what any intelligent civilization would decide. But somewhere in the darkness of space, one species hadn't received the signal yet. A species that other aliens whispered about in fear. The humans were coming. Captain Kim Day was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency signal crackled through the bridge speakers of the resilient Dawn. The desperate Volani voice cut through the static, speaking in broken galactic common about hull breaches and failing life support. 200 lives hanging in the balance? Kim Day didn't hesitate for even a second. He slammed his coffee cup down and turned to his navigator. "Park Jin, plot a course to those coordinates. Maximum speed." Park Jin's fingers were already dancing across his control panel. The young navigator had served under Captain Kim for 3 years, and he knew that look in his captain's eyes. They were going in, no matter what. "Sir, the computer is showing extreme radiation levels and debris density. This isn't going to be easy." "Easy never saved anyone," Kim Day replied, settling into his captain's chair. "Lina, open a channel to nearby monitoring stations. Let everyone know we're responding to the emergency call." Communications officer Lina worked quickly at her station. She was the newest member of the crew, but she'd already learned that humans did things differently than other species. While she transmitted their intentions across space, she could hear the excitement in her own voice. They were actually going to attempt this impossible rescue. The response from alien monitoring stations was immediate and shocked. A hegemony observer ship was the first to reply, their translator working overtime to express their confusion. "Human vessel Resilient Dawn, are you experiencing technical difficulties? You appear to be heading directly toward the Caraxes death zone." "No technical problems here," Lina responded cheerfully. "We're responding to the distress call. Someone needs help." What happened next would be talked about in alien academies for decades. Across known space, 17 different civilizations watched their monitoring screens in complete disbelief. The humans were actually doing it. They were flying straight towards certain death to save complete strangers. The ethereal collective emergency council reconvened in panic. The Death have lost their minds, their chief strategist declared. They're going to get themselves killed for nothing. The Hegemony Military Command activated their deep space cameras, positioning them to record what they assumed would be humanity's first major disaster in space. Their generals wanted to study how the human ship would be destroyed, hoping to learn something about Deathworlder technology before it was vaporized. But Captain Kim Day wasn't thinking about any of that. He was thinking about 200 scared passengers floating helplessly in a metal coffin. His crew was already preparing rescue equipment, checking EVA suits, and loading medical supplies. The resilient Dawn picked up speed, racing toward danger while the rest of the galaxy watched and waited for the humans to die. The edge of the Caraxes debris field looked like the entrance to hell itself. Twisted chunks of metal from 1,000 destroyed ships spun through space, each piece moving at deadly speeds. The unstable pulsar at the center sent out waves of radiation that made the scanner screens flicker and buzz with interference. Holy ... Pilot Yoon, he whispered, as she stared at the nightmare ahead of them. She'd flown through asteroid belts before, but this was different. This was a cosmic meat grinder that had been chewing up spaceships for centuries. Captain Kim Day stood behind her chair, his hand steady on her shoulder. "You've got this, Yoon. Take us in." Engineer Choi Min had left his usual post and was now sitting at the secondary controls, his hands flying over the manual piloting system. The automated systems would be useless in there. Only human reflexes and instincts could navigate through those spinning death traps. The resilient Dawn dove into the debris field like a falcon hunting prey. Immediately, alarms started screaming. Throughout the ship, a chunk of twisted hull plating the size of a car tumbled past their front window, missing them by mere meters. "Radiation levels are spiking," reported Medical Officer Song Era from her station. "We're already getting doses that would kill most alien species." Choi Min grunted as he threw the ship into a sharp turn, squeezing through a gap that seemed impossible. The hull scraped against a piece of debris, sending sparks flying past the windows. "Ship's taking damage, but she hold together," he called out, watching from safe distances. Alien observation ships recorded every moment. The crews couldn't believe what they were seeing. A hegemony captain turned to his science officer with wide eyes. "Are the humans suicidal? Their radiation readings should have killed them already." Meanwhile, Pilot Yoon, he was dancing the resilient Dawn through the debris like it was a deadly ballet. When smaller pieces blocked their path, she fired controlled plasma bursts that turned the obstacles into harmless vapor. Her movements were precise and confident, even as larger chunks of wreckage spun past them in all directions. "There," Navigator Park Jin shouted, pointing at his screen. "I've got the Villani ship on sensors." 2 kilometers deeper into the field, the resilient Dawn took another hit, this time along the port side. Emergency lights flickered on as hull breach alarms joined the symphony of warnings already filling the bridge. Any sane crew would have turned back by now. The damage was getting serious, and they were flying deeper into the most dangerous place in known space. But Captain Kim Day just smiled grimly. "Keep going. Those people are counting on us." The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the human ship disappeared deeper into the maelstrom, leaving a trail of sparks and vapor behind them. The airlock doors of the peaceful Dawn were bent and twisted from the impacts, but Captain Kim Day's team managed to force them open with portable cutting tools. The moment they stepped inside, they knew they were in a race against time. The ship was dying around them, metal groaning and creaking as the structure slowly tore itself apart. "Emergency lighting only," reported Medic Song Yoon through her helmet radio. Life support is almost completely gone. She checked her readings and shook her head. Oxygen levels are at 12% and dropping fast. Security Chief Park 1 took point, his heavy boots clanking on the twisted deck plates. The corridors were a maze of fallen ceiling panels and sparking electrical cables. Every few seconds, another section would buckle somewhere in the ship, sending vibrations through the floor that made them all stumble. They found the first group of Vellani huddled in what used to be a dining hall. Kim Dae stopped dead in his tracks when he saw them. The aliens were nothing like he'd imagined. They looked almost like birds that had evolved to walk upright, with delicate bones and skin so thin you could see their blue blood vessels underneath. Their large eyes were filled with terror as they gasped for air in the poisoned atmosphere. "My God," Song Yoon whispered. "They're so fragile. Look at them. They can barely breathe." The Vellani shrank back in fear when they saw the humans approaching. These strange, bulky creatures in their thick environmental suits must have seemed like monsters from their worst nightmares. One elderly Vellani female was trying to shield a group of younglings behind her frail body. Park 1 slowly removed his helmet, showing his human face. "It's okay," he said gently, though he knew they couldn't understand him. "We're here to help." The ship's translation system was barely working, crackling with static and cutting out every few words. But somehow, the message got through. "Help, ... you ... help us." One of the Vellani gasped in broken galactic common. Captain Kim Dae knelt down beside the group, making himself seem less threatening. "Yes, we received your distress call. We're taking you to safety." The elderly Vellani female stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Impossible. No one comes to Caraxus, Death Place. You ... you are not real." Song Yoon was already pulling medical equipment from her pack, checking the aliens' vital signs with her portable scanner. "Captain, their respiratory systems are shutting down. We need to get them oxygen immediately, or we're going to lose them." Another section of the ship collapsed somewhere nearby, the sound echoing through the corridors like thunder. The Vellani cried out in fear, but Kim Dae's voice stayed calm and steady. "We're going to get you out of here, all of you, I promise." The rescue operation turned into organized chaos. Medic Song Yoon worked frantically to keep the Vellani alive, connecting her portable oxygen units to their delicate breathing systems. The aliens were so different from humans that nothing in her medical training had prepared her for this. She had to figure out their biology on the spot, watching their vital signs and making life or death decisions every few seconds. "Their lungs work completely differently from ours," she called out over the noise of grinding metal. "I'm having to triple the oxygen flow just to keep them conscious." Engineer Choi Min was performing miracles with broken technology. He crawled through twisted maintenance shafts, bypassing destroyed power systems and jury-rigging emergency lighting so they could see where they were going. Sparks flew from exposed wires as he worked, but he ignored the danger. Every light he restored might save another life. The human crew's physical strength became their greatest advantage. Captain Kim Dae scooped up 3 adult Vellani at once, their lightweight bodies feeling almost like children in his arms. The aliens were amazed by this. What seemed like impossible lifting power to them was just normal human capability. Security Chief Park 1 was carrying for Vellani when a support beam crashed down right in front of him. Without hesitation, he turned his body to shield the aliens from the falling debris, taking a hard hit on his shoulder that would have crushed any of the bird-like passengers. "I'm fine, keep moving," he grunted when Song Yoon tried to check his injury. The resilient Dawn started showing dangerous signs of radiation damage. Warning lights flashed red throughout the human ship as systems began failing one by one. Navigator Park Jin reported grimly from the bridge, "Captain, our life support is getting overloaded. We're pushing way beyond safe capacity." Kim Dae looked at the scared Villani faces surrounding him, and made the only decision he could. We're not leaving anyone. Figure out how to make it work. The evacuation became a desperate relay race. Human crew members ran back and forth through collapsing corridors, carrying load after load of grateful but terrified aliens to safety. Each trip became more dangerous as the peaceful dawn continued to tear itself apart around them. With only 17 Villani left to rescue, the ship's main support structure finally gave way. A massive section of the hull twisted like a pretzel, blocking their primary escape route. Emergency klaxons screamed as atmosphere rushed out through new cracks in the walls. The whole section is going to collapse. Choi Min shouted into his radio. We've got maybe 2 minutes. Captain Kim Dae grabbed the last group of survivors, including several younglings who looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. His crew formed a human chain through the debris, passing the Villani from person to person as the ship died around them. They made it to the resilient dawn, just as the peaceful dawn broke completely in half behind them. The rescue footage spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every major civilization had monitoring stations near the Caraxes debris field, and their automated recording systems had captured everything. Within hours, the impossible rescue was playing on screens throughout known space. On the hegemony homeworld. General Vorthok watched the footage for the 10th time, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. The scene that stunned him most wasn't the dangerous flying or the structural collapses. It was the moment when Captain Kim Dae removed his own oxygen mask to give it to a dying Villani child. The human held his breath in the toxic atmosphere, just to keep an alien youngster alive for a few more precious seconds. This changes everything, Vorthok muttered to his aide. We've been treating these humans like dangerous animals, but look at this. They're risking death for complete strangers. The footage was even more shocking to species who prided themselves on logic and calculation. The Cosmic Trade Federation's Emergency Council gathered in their crystal halls, their collective minds struggling to process what they'd witnessed. These humans had made every decision that their computers would classify as mathematically insane. They lost money on this rescue, declared Trade Minister Zillan, his tentacles writhing in confusion. Their ship took expensive damage. Their crew risked valuable lives. They gained nothing and risked everything. It makes no economic sense. But the most disturbing reactions came from the peaceful species, the ethereal collective, known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and spiritual advancement, called an emergency session of their High Council. For 3 days straight, their greatest philosophers debated a single question. How could a species from a death world show more compassion than civilizations that had spent millennia perfecting the art of peaceful coexistence? Elder Luminous, the oldest of their kind, spoke the words that would be remembered for generations. We abandoned those Villani to preserve our own safety. We calculated their deaths as acceptable losses. But these humans, these primitive Deathworlders, they saw the same situation and chose to risk everything to save strangers. Perhaps we need to reconsider who the truly advanced species is. The footage kept playing across alien networks, and each viewing revealed new details that amazed observers. They watched engineer Choi Min work with sparking electrical systems that would have killed most aliens instantly. They saw medic Song Yoon sharing her food rations with Villani children, even though her own supplies were running low. On 1,000 worlds, alien children asked their parents the same question: why didn't we help the Villani? And for the first time in their civilized history, their parents didn't have a good answer. The humans had done something that shook the foundation of galactic society. They'd shown that sometimes the most logical thing to do was something completely illogical. The galactic reaction was unlike anything in recorded history. Within 72 hours, every major university, military academy, and research institute across known space was studying the Coraxus rescue. The footage was broken down frame by frame, analyzed by the greatest minds of 43 different civilizations. And still nobody could make sense of what the humans had done. At the prestigious HFY War College, Admiral Zorth stood before a room full of his best tactical officers. On the screen behind him, Captain Kimday was carrying 3 Valani through a collapsing corridor, while his own ship took critical damage. "Explain this decision to me," Zorth demanded. The human commander had multiple opportunities to retreat and save his crew. Instead, he chose to risk everyone for aliens he'd never met. The officers sat in stunned silence. One finally spoke up. "Sir, there is no tactical explanation. By every military doctrine we know, his actions were ... insane." The economists were having similar problems. On the Cosmic Trade Federation's main world, financial experts ran the numbers over and over. Professor Quillex, the galaxy's leading authority on resource management, published a report that became famous overnight. The human rescue operation cost approximately 2.3 million galactic credits in ship repairs, medical supplies, and crew risk compensation. The economic benefit was exactly 0. This level of resource waste violates every principle of rational behavior. But the most disturbing responses came from the psychologists. Dr. Vexhai, of the Ethereal Collective, spent weeks studying the footage, trying to understand the human mindset. His final conclusion shocked the scientific community. These humans appear to possess an emotional response we cannot classify. They feel genuine distress when strangers suffer, even strangers of different species. This suggests a level of empathy that our current psychological models cannot explain. Meanwhile, Captain Thylos and his surviving Valani passengers had become the most famous beings in the galaxy. They traveled from world to world, speaking to packed auditoriums about their rescue. Thylos would stand on stage, his thin blue skin still showing the scars from his ordeal, and tell the same amazing story. "I thought we were already dead," he would say, his voice carrying across silent crowds. "We had accepted our fate. Then these humans came through a field of death that no rational being would enter. They risked everything for us." Captain Kim Day looked me in the eyes and said, "We're taking you home. Not some of us. All of us." The Valani testimonials were having an unexpected effect. Species that had never given humans a second thought were suddenly reconsidering everything they knew about the notorious Deathworlders. Maybe these weren't the dangerous savages they'd been told to fear. Maybe they were something much more remarkable. The galaxy was beginning to realize that humanity might be the most dangerous species of all. Dangerous because they made everyone else question their own moral choices. The change started slowly, then became an avalanche. 3 weeks after the Coraxus rescue, the first alien delegation arrived at Luna Station, humanity's main diplomatic outpost. The Cosmic Trade Federation representative, a nervous jellyfish-like creature named Ambassador Gloth, floated in his environmental tank and made an offer that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. "We want to establish formal trade relations with humanity," Gloth announced through his translator. "Your species has unique qualities that we believe could benefit galactic commerce." Captain Kim Day, still wearing his patched uniform from the rescue mission, found himself sitting across from beings he'd only seen in textbooks. The meeting room was packed with alien diplomats who had traveled across the galaxy to meet the humans who had done the impossible. Within days, Kim Day's life changed completely. Human Fleet Command promoted him to Admiral and created an entirely new department just for him, the First Contact Division. His old crew from the Resilient Dawn became the core staff for handling alien relations, something none of them had ever trained for. "This is crazy," Engineer Choi Min said as he looked at his new office. "Last month I was fixing plasma conduits. Now aliens are asking me to design joint rescue ships." The requests kept pouring in. The Hegemony Empire, which had spent decades avoiding human space, suddenly wanted to discuss mutual assistance protocols. The peaceful Ethereal Collective sent philosophers to study human ethics. Even the reclusive Silicon Minds, emerged from their hidden worlds to offer technology exchanges. But the most significant change was happening in alien navigation systems across the galaxy. Species that had previously marked human patrol routes as dangerous zones to avoid were now updating their star charts with a new classification: emergency assistance corridors. Ship captains began plotting their courses to pass near human patrol areas, just in case something went wrong. The humans had gained a reputation as the galaxy's unofficial emergency responders, the ones you called when everyone else said A. Situation was hopeless. Admiral Park Jin, Kim Dae's former navigator, who now headed the new emergency response fleet, found his job description expanding daily. "We're getting distress calls from species I've never even heard of," he told his staff. "They all say the same thing. We need the humans who saved the Vellani." The psychological impact on alien societies was even more profound. On worlds where efficiency and logic had ruled for millennia, citizens began questioning their governments. Cold calculations. Protests erupted on several worlds when local authorities refused to attempt risky rescues, with demonstrators chanting, "What would the humans do?" The feared Deathworlders had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that other civilizations actually wanted to be more like. The humans hadn't conquered anyone or threatened anyone. They had simply shown that sometimes doing the right thing mattered more than doing the safe thing. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Unity had never seen anything like it. Representatives from over 200 species packed the massive chamber, all waiting to hear from the human who had changed everything. Admiral Kim Dae walked to the central podium, still feeling awkward in his dress uniform. 6 months ago, he was just another patrol captain. Now he was addressing the most powerful beings in known space. "Honored delegates," Kim Dae began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "I stand before you not as a conqueror or a politician, but as someone who simply answered a distress call." The audience stirred with interest. In the front row sat Ambassador Thylos, the Vellani captain whose rescue had started this galactic transformation. His thin blue skin had healed completely, but his large eyes still held the memory of those desperate hours aboard the dying, peaceful Dawn. The changes since Caraxus had been remarkable. 3 more human rescue missions had captured galactic attention. When the Hegemony research station suffered a reactor meltdown, human emergency teams had evacuated 2,000 aliens through radiation levels that should have been instantly fatal. When pirates trapped a silicon-mined exploration vessel in an asteroid field, human pilots had navigated impossible passages to reach them. Each time, the humans had risked everything for beings they barely knew. The Deathworlder response phenomenon had become an official term in diplomatic circles. Universities across the galaxy now studied it as a unique form of behavior that defied traditional logic. Military academies included it in their strategic planning courses, not as a tactic to use, but as something they might encounter when dealing with humans. The most dramatic change was in the galactic emergency response system. Before Caraxus, each species handled its own disasters. Now there was a new protocol that every civilization had quietly adopted in case of extreme emergency. Contact the humans first. Admiral Kim Dae continued his address. "Some of you have asked why we risk so much for strangers. The answer is simple: because they needed help, and we were able to provide it. That's not a military strategy or a diplomatic tool. That's just who we are." Ambassador Thylos rose from his seat, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "Before the humans saved us, I believed the galaxy was a cold place where only the strong survived. Now, I know there are beings who will face death itself to help others. They have taught us that true strength isn't about protecting yourself. It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The Assembly voted unanimously to establish the Universal Emergency Response Protocols, with humanity at its center. What had started as one ship answering one distress call had become a new foundation for galactic civilization. The feared Deathworlders had become the galaxy's conscience, showing everyone what it truly meant to be civilized.